Welcome on in, everybody, to another episode of Dbacks Dispatch. Here with your hosts, Brett, Brandon, and Gabe. Here to talk a little bit about some Dbacks news, and obviously with the pitching coach and some other Dbacks related, but mostly here to kind of go through what our thoughts on and our personal Mount Rushmores in Dbacks franchise history would be. But that's going to be the meat and potatoes of the episode. But before we get on into it, obviously, welcome on in here. If this is your first time in here on the YouTube, appreciate having you. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel and all that. Check us out on Twitter, and now recently we are on Blue Sky. So if you are on Blue Sky as well, go follow us on Blue Sky. Join the Discord as well, especially with football season, basketball season, hockey season, kind of getting into more gear. Got some channels in there to discuss with other like-minded fans of those sports. Also, check out AZ Snake Pit for any articles we're going to have, throughout the season. You guys, if you were following us along throughout the 2024 regular season, we do have a bunch of article recaps and all that. So if you're looking for more some, readable content, definitely your place to go right there. And then if you do have any questions in the chat and all that, or any questions in general, leave in the chat. We'll try to get to it at the very end, depending on how long the Rushmore goes. If not, we will definitely address it in the Discord or at least on our next show. But yeah, so I guess just kind of dive into it. As most of you guys have probably heard, the D-backs did hire a new pitching coach, Brian Kaplan. He previously worked as a Phillies assistant pitching coach and director of pitching from 2022 to 2024. And you guys probably know the Phillies have some pretty solid pitchers. Nola, Wheeler, they were really solid. Couldn't really do much with Taijuan Walker, but sometimes coaches can only do so much. On the MLB article that Steve Gilbert had about it, some of the few things I noticed that were kind of cool is he's the co-founder of Cressy Sports Performance, which is a training facility for professional baseball players whose clientele include Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, and Corey Kluber, all guys that have had great careers. So it's kind of a nice little nugget of information knowing that he's worked with some of these guys. Sorry about that. And then the biggest part that I noticed that obviously we'll kind of get Brandon and Gabe's thoughts on this is he did say some of the things that he wants to bring here is, quote, an emphasis on health and emphasis on performance and what it means to tie those things together. Went on to say having really strong relationships with the strength staff, the medical staff, being able to handle a lot of complex information, going back and forth from the analysts and trying to filter those things and simplify those things and relay them to the players in a digestible manner. Which obviously I think the health and emphasis on performance, maybe a little bit of a thing on Merrill and his cramping. So maybe he's going to try to get down to the bottom of that. But again, could be a, big change going from a guy like Brent Strom to Brian Kaplan. I'm not as familiar with Brian Kaplan, but again, just knowing what he's done with the Philly staff in the last few years, they have been one of the better ones. I'm excited. But my question to you fellas here, and obviously anybody in the chat, is what are your expectations for Brian Kaplan and the starting pitching rotation in 2025? And then I guess the second follow-up to it, what pitchers do you see having a big improvement under Kaplan's tutelage? Gabe, want to start with you, and then Brandon will go to you after.
Just in general, I really do like this hiring. The Phillies have a really good pitching staff all around. Like, he fixed Christopher Sanchez. Christopher Sanchez throughout his whole career was like a 4 or 5 ERA guy, and he gets to Philly, and then whatever changes that he made to him, he throws a little bit harder than he did before, and his ERA went down almost like 2 runs. And I did mention on the podcast around the time of like the midway through the season, I did say that like I didn't necessarily trust those numbers from Christopher Sanchez, but that was because he has no track record behind it. So sometimes you can see like, okay, like maybe at some point the league will adjust, and the league sort of did, but he was still very good. He was still really good for them. So with that being said, like he seemed to have a lot of emphasis on what they call like biomechanics, which isn't really a word that I was familiar with. I mostly knew like biometrics, which is just the body and stuff like that. So biomechanics, I guess, would be the same sort of thing, just work on these guys' mechanics to help them improve maybe their speed, maybe their stamina, especially for guys like Merrill or Jordan Montgomery. Like we saw what happened this season, both of them, experiencing cramps. Same with Gallen, he had cramps. Like we had a lot of guys experiencing cramps, and it's like I know Chase Field is warm, but it's not like they were, out there pitching in Philadelphia and like the humidity. So it's like what's the difference between, Chase and St. Louis in the summer or Cincinnati, like these outdoor stadiums that do get super humid. So there's just something that needs to be changed there. Like we talked about maybe changing the medical staff. We didn't see that happen at all. We just saw the entire pitching staff, but maybe it was something to do with more strength and conditioning coming from the pitching coach side. So if he's here and he can help fix that, I mean, it's not like the Phillies had really had many injuries other than, like you mentioned, Taiwan Walker. He was kind of like the real outlier for them. But yeah, I mean, I like this hire. I do think with some of the older, more veteran guys like Gallen, Kelly, Montgomery, they probably need somebody else in their ear now. I think, like a Fod or Nelson, since they're young, they still want to be in the big league. They'll listen to Brent Strom, but I think maybe guys, they're a little bit older might have little more difficulty taking some advice because it doesn't matter how great your suggestions are. Like if you don't deliver it properly, it falls on deaf ears, and seems maybe that might have happened because there's even that quote from Strami at the end of the season where it said that Zach Gallen is a victim of his own success. Like I think he wanted to get rid of his slider, but Gallen didn't want to because he had success with it. But yeah, and I think the second part of the question was the who's gonna have like the base improvement. For me, I do think it'll probably be Jordan Montgomery. So, but I don't think we should move on from him.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point with like the biomechanics. It'll be interesting to see, kind of the shift of obviously Strom is really into, some analytics and like deep diving into like pitchers. Obviously, we know the story about him bringing a binder to Gallen. But I think maybe having a kind of a different mindset, different switch into not just the pitching side, but also like you said, the more like healthy side, trying to keep these guys, back, like keep their spot in the rotation every fifth day, making sure they're actually going out there to get those starts. So I think you bring up a great point with maybe guys like Montgomery and then potentially even Merrill Kelly. I know this was somewhat of a down year for him in 2024. I think those two guys can be probably more beneficial to some of Kaplan's teaching. And I think Fott and Nelson will slide in well and adjust as well. But Brandon, kind of same question to you. What are your expectations for Kaplan and the pitching staff in 2025? And then what players do you see having a big improvement or even maybe even a big step back going from the tutelage of Strom to now Kaplan?
I didn't realize how young this man was. Jesus Christ. We went from literally the oldest pitching coach in all of Major League Baseball to probably the young, like he was the assistant. Like it's not like he was even the head guy at the Phillies. So again, I didn't know that much about him, but like after the hire, looking back on it, like I'm pretty excited. It's gonna be nice to see what someone else. Just seems like a little bit. It'll be a nice change there for them. So that will be nice to see. Like we've kind of already brought up. Oh, you want to know why I sound? Do I sound better now? Yeah. StreamYard was like, you know what? We're gonna use your laptop mic, not your actual mic there. But no, like he basically was the guy that developed the entire pitching in the entire organization. It wasn't just at the major league level. He did it through the entire organization. And also I think if you're big into advanced stats, the fact that they had a combined from 22 to 24, a 69 F4, it's pretty good. So that's probably a good thing. I just have to wait and see. Like I think with this, there's a lot of unknown. I don't know that much about him. He's never been the main guy, so that's what worries me just a little bit. But it also could benefit us. Like he could be really good, and we could be set up for having a pitching coach for the next decade. That is definitely possible for him. I just want this team to not have a bottom 5 starting pitching ERA. Because if we didn't, who knows what would have happened in the playoffs. Just curious to see if there's going to be any changes with like Gallen, Kelly, Montgomery, Erod. Like, is he going to try to make any sort of adjustments with their stuff? But I think if he can continue to have Ryan Nelson improve, for me, is going to be the biggest thing. Can Ryan Nelson continue his improvement that we saw in the second half of last year? Because he's the reason why they're shopping Jordan Montgomery. If Ryan Nelson wasn't who he was last year, where we had to even move Monty to the bullpen, they're not shopping Jordan Montgomery. And at this point, Gabe said keep Monty. No. Get some, like, if you can get a high leverage arm or maybe even a medium leverage arm, I'd be okay with that. And I know people say, oh, as soon as we trade Monty, wherever he goes, he's going to succeed. We don't know that. We don't know that that's going to happen.
I just know with our track record of guys like Bronson Arroyo was never hurt in his entire career. He comes over here instantly.
Every organization.
I know.
Look back, every organization has players where they leave and then all of a sudden, boom, it clicks. So it's not just the Diamondbacks thing, trust me.
I think it's just maybe because we're a younger organization that the frequency that it seems to happen might be a little bit more standing out. But I think you bring up a great point of maybe he does do well, maybe he doesn't. But even if we do keep him, I think the Kaplan should hopefully be able to kind of maybe get him back into form that we saw. A reason why him and the Rangers were like did what they did in 2023.
I mean, he was also out of shape. Like, you can tell right away he was out of shape compared to how he looked at in the playoffs and stuff. So maybe having a different coach will keep him on track, keep him on a diet or something. But I know you're saying that, like, maybe shop him around. Like, we can get a middle reliever. I honestly don't think we can get anything for him right now. It's going to be a salary dump. Like, we're going to have to get some slapdick prospect from, I don't know, like some tiny island in Puerto Rico, and then just eat 20 million of that contract or something. Like, this team is not going to get anything for Montgomery, for another team to give up real prospects or real money for him. So that's why I think we should keep him, just test him out, see like how he is in the first couple of months. If not, just eat the money the way they did with Madison Bumgarner.
Yes, I think that's probably going to be what they go with, because I know I think it was either shared in our Discord or I just saw it on the internet somewhere. It was the meme of, it's a record player sitting on the street. It's like, doesn't work, but it could be fun to fix. And it's basically the D-backs, trying to shop Jordan Montgomery. It's just, especially right now, you'd be selling so low that, like Gabe said, you're probably not going to get much, even if it's a medium leverage guy or like even some slapdick prospects. Shout out Blake Snell for one of the best names or one of the best jokes ever with that. But yeah, you're not going to get too much with him. But I think that if anything, he could have a solid turnaround, like you said, Gabe, with what he did to Christopher Sanchez. Maybe he could have a little bit of the same kind of success with Montgomery, and then kind of refine his form. But from some D-backs, taking an assistant pitching coach and making them their pitching coach, they had a little bit of an opposite situation with now former pitching coach Brent Strom, who recently was, announced to be going to the Pirates to be an assistant coach there. Can't blame him after seeing what Paul Skeens did and knowing what kind of mind Brent Strom is as a baseball guy. I do the same thing. But then some other, kind of somewhat related D-backs news, because I know obviously with him already being fired, we didn't really expect too much regarding with him staying with the D-backs. But Ketel Marte, as of today, I believe it was just a few hours ago, was announced as the All MLB first team for second base. Obviously, best second baseman in baseball at this point. No really arguments, and it seemed like he's getting some of the recognition he deserves, which is cool. Like I said, Brent Strom joining the Pirates. Kevin Newman signed with the LA Angels. Put that in quotes.
No, he didn't. He signed with the Anaheim Angels. I will not stand for this baloney.
That's why I put it in the quotes, because it's part of their name. I'm not gonna, call them, or like, again, I agree, they are from Anaheim, but yeah, he's going there for a 1 year, $2.5 million deal, which I believe is close to the same that he had with the D-backs here. So I figured he would have gotten a little bit of a pay bump, but maybe the incentive is he's actually going to get to play, more than just a utility role. He'll get some more time there. And the Dodgers did also win the NL Team Silver Slugger Award. We kind of talked a little bit more about it in our last show. So if you guys missed any of that discussion, it's a little bit late news, but go listen to that, kind of get some of our thoughts. Not too surprising, obviously, especially when they lead in home run slugging and OPS. It makes a little bit of sense. And then finally, because he has been linked to the D-backs a little bit in some tweets, especially with them being one of this, I think some of the 6 or 8 teams that had scouts in attendance consistently watching him. Roki Sasaki was officially posted by the Chiba Chibolo. Again, I'm terrible with pronunciation. If you guys can correct me, I appreciate that. But his team did post him, and Jim Bowden in the MLB article, it was an MLB article quoting him from The Athletic, but he did say that based on what he's hearing, he thinks the Padres, Rays, Mets, and Braves are more likely to sign Sasaki than the Dodgers. So again, sucks it's not the D-backs being mentioned, but if anybody but the Dodgers gets him, it's okay in my book. I wanted to get, kind of some quick thoughts from you guys, because like I said, I know this isn't fully D-backs related, but it is still, kind of somewhat related to the D-backs. Brandon, I want to start with you on this one. What are some quick thoughts on, some of this recent news and all that?
Yeah, I mean, color me shocked. Ketel Marte is a starting second baseman on the All MLB team. I did not see that coming. Y'all, this past season, he was the best second baseman in MLB by a wide margin. Cruz tried to tell me at work yesterday that Marcus Semien was just as good. I'm like, bro, stop. Stop, bro. Like, Cruz, I appreciate you. I really do.
Like trying to get into this game.
Oh, he does it all the freaking time. This man came to work yesterday wearing blue and black with a Dodgers hat, and it was unbearable. So yeah, congrats to Ketel Marte. Hashtag Ketel for MVP. The Brett Strom news, I'm like, it is what it is. Like, it's very weird because he's not going on the road. He's just gonna be in the dugout. I don't even think he's going out for mound visits. He's not even the main pitching coach. It's very he knows he's old, but he doesn't want to give up.
I think he just wanted to get his hands on Paul Skeens and seeing what he can do over there with him.
If you want to ruin Paul Skeens, that is completely.
Well, hold on. He fixed Brandon Pfaadt. I don't want to say he's going to ruin Skeens. He could make Skeens even better and unlock something. But
hey, as long as he doesn't become a freaking Dodger in a couple of years, I am fine with that. So, and also well deserved for Kevin Newman. Kevin Newman worked his butt off last season. Kevin Newman deserved that contract. I feel like the Angels think their money's gonna go bad or it's gonna burst into flames if they don't sign guys. They're literally the only team that has signed anybody so far. And then the Sasaki news, I said it last year with Shohei, anyone but LA. I know that he really wants to play with Yu Darvish, and I feel like that's why he wanted to be posted early, because he's probably costing himself $200 million by doing it so early. I think his stuff, and it's been said, is better than Yamamoto, but it's unpolished. So there's a lot to be worked on there. So as long as he doesn't go to the Dodgers, I'm completely okay with it. And yeah, speaking of Dodgers, of course they won the NL Silver Slugger. When you're first in average home runs and slugging, that's gonna happen. And it's also because it's Shohei. MLB loves Shohei. So,
yes,
thoughts there.
I think the kind of share the same sentiment as you. As long as it's not the Dodgers, I'm okay with it. And I did read in that same MLB article that he didn't Yu Darvish is probably one of his favorite players, if not favorite player of all time, I believe is what he was quoted saying. And then obviously the rookie contract. There's a whole different scenario with that. I don't have all of it at the top of my head, but it's not the normal posting Ohtani and Yamamoto where they're going to be getting all this money. It's limited to the amount of money he actually can get. So it's not like just the team with the biggest checkbook is going to get him. So let's hope that he goes to anybody but the Dodgers, and we don't have the same thing as last year where we see LA just get even better. But Gabe, kind of same thoughts to you. Or same question to you, just get your thoughts, anything that you might have to say about, some of the news like Cattell, Newman, Strom, Roki, and then obviously the Dodgers taking home the NL Silver Slugger for the team.
Yeah, I just want to say first of all, the funniest thing about naming them the Los Angeles Angels is that Los Angeles just means the angels in Spanish. So they're literally called the Angels of Angels or the Angels of Anaheim.
They're only doing it for sponsorship. Like that's literally
what it is. I mean,
they're not
Anaheim
even in LA
far away.
County. They're not even in the
They're in
same
Orange
county,
County.
bro. Like
Yeah,
I hate
like,
the whole crosstown rivalry. They're not crosstown. Like it's like a good hour plus.
Yeah, it's an hour, and it's not even like with traffic either. Like it literally just takes an hour to get there. Like even if there is no traffic, but it's stupid. But I mean, either way, I mean the team is in shambles and it's been in shambles, and they're just wasting Mike Trout's career. But the other news, Kevin Newman, I'm happy for him. He got a 1 year, $2 million deal. I'm assuming this is sort of a show me deal. He's probably going to be able to be an everyday player there, and he's able to do what he did with the D-backs. He's probably going to get a longer deal at the end of this year, probably for more money. Cattell, I mean, he is the best second baseman in baseball. He's probably been the best second baseman in baseball for a while. So congrats to him. Congrats on also being a top 3 nominations for MVP. Brent Strom, I think maybe we did talk about a little bit just how old he was, like what his role would be for next year. Because I think there was even a tweet early on where it said that he wouldn't continue his role or something like that. It didn't say he was fired, but later on they clarified, oh no, he's actually fired, blah blah blah.
It was literally like 2 hours later. Like, well, actually he's fired. I'm like, that's kind of
weird. That's why. But I did find the wording a little weird, but that makes sense that he's not, I guess, willing to travel with the team anymore. He's just going to be in a dugout for home games, and it's a lot of very specific like ask that he's having, which is understandable. I mean, the man is like 77 years old. Like he's not a young guy anymore, so I can understand that. But I'm excited to see what he does with Paul Skeens. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know how much better he can get. Just maybe go more innings. That's the only thing I can maybe think of. But excited to see if he can do something. Sasaki, I still think he's probably going to sign with the Dodgers. But like you guys said, anybody but the Dodgers, even anyone but the Padres, like put him in, the East Coast. I don't care. Then the Dodgers win the Silver Slugger. We argue that it could go either way, and it doesn't really matter, for you to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think kind of the same sentiment as you is just please just no Dodgers. And then when you're not making the playoffs, doesn't matter if you have one of the best offenses. I think even if the voting is kind of before the playoffs start, the how you finish the season in the last month is probably going to linger heavier in voters' minds. And I think the Dodgers and the way they kind of went into the playoffs, and obviously like Brandon said with Shohei, gonna get a little bit more love to him, but not too surprising. Before we get into the the big, like we said, meat and potatoes of the show here in the Mount Rushmore, I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. Bubba, always appreciate you stopping by. This might not be if anything, this is the anti-Rushmore. That is the rushed out more, because none of these guys we wanted here. Tomas, Avila, Bumgarner, Castro. Yeah, could not think of a better 4 that I do not even want to think of their time here in Arizona. But either way, appreciate you stopping by, Bubba. And then same with Oscar as well. Always love having you in here, Oscar, except for the Lindor for MVP. Banned immediately.
I'm trying to find out who's our biggest troll. Is it Oscar or is it Cruz?
Oh, it's definitely Cruz. Oscar does it out of love and just trying to be, like a jokester. Cruz does it because he knows it'll get under our skin. He knows exactly what he's doing.
It's because he does it to me every freaking day, y'all. The freaking text he sent me, I'm like, I don't care about the Dodger stuff.
And then we got our man Dank that changes YouTube up here, but I'm still gonna go off of Dank just because I love the name. So appreciate all you guys stopping by, and perfect timing as well, because like I said, we're gonna get into the Dbacks franchise Mount Rushmore. A little bit of a spoiler alert: about 75% of it we're all gonna agree on, but we do got a different answer for the last spot. Along with we got a few honorable mentions that each one of us kind of picked a different name. So we'll kick things off here with Gabe. I want to, go with you for number one. Who would you have as the very first face whenever you think about a D-backs Mount Rushmore?
Probably our man who is our lone Hall of Famer, Mr. Randy Johnson. If you look at his career numbers here, he had almost a 53 WAR. So you're talking, they always talk about the barometer being 60 WAR for the Hall of Fame. He had almost a Hall of Fame career here in 8 years. 2.83 ERA, 2,000 strikeouts, and 164 ERA plus, 4 All-Star games, 4 straight Cy Youngs, and of course a co-MVP in the World Series. Like, this man is a legend here. He's a legend for a reason. The street to get to the D-Backs Stadium is Randy Johnson Way. Like, he is the face of Arizona, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I think he's probably going to be the face of the Arizona Diamondbacks until, maybe some other guy that we might mention later, if he's able to win a World Series with them as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any real argument that he should be number one. Like I said, he had a Hall of Fame career here in 8 years, which to qualify for the Hall of Fame, I think you need 10 years even. So just the fact he was able to do as much as he did, and like, I was lucky enough to see a lot of it, even though I was a child, but I was still just blown away with how incredible he was. So for me, yeah, Randy Johnson's number one.
Yeah, so kind of like I said in the little bit of a spoiler, I believe we're all in the same boat. Just the 52 WAR, and I know pitching WAR is a little bit different, but 52 WAR in 8 years is crazy. The 4 straight Cy Youngs, the 164 ERA plus in his time in the desert is wild. But Brandon, same to you. I believe,
Oscar,
obviously
that's
we know
why he's on the list, because he killed a
Yeah,
bird.
that's the only reason why. And he never became a Dodger. Okay, that's another key factor. But yeah, same to you, Brandon. Why would you, or if maybe randomly going to throw a curveball on us in the live show, would you say that Randy is also number one on the Rushmore? And if
he's the best left-handed pitcher of all time in Major League Baseball. Like, I know there's probably a discussion, maybe Kershaw, maybe Sandy Koufax, but Randy Johnson was literally it's not that he just dominated for the Diamondbacks. He did it for several franchises. Like, he was, in my opinion, he is the best left-handed starting pitcher. Like, it's like Shaq throwing on the mound, but from the other side. Like, he's 6'10". Like, that is scary if you're at the plate. Like, had a fastball that would get on you. That slider was absolutely devastating for a left-handed pitcher. Freaking even Larry Walker was like, I'm going to put my helmet on backwards because I am scared. So, also signed the most perfect contract ever. So he signed that 4-year, $52 million. He wins 4 straight Cy Youngs. He averaged about 350 strikeouts. Like, you can't ask for anything better. Like, I don't know. Like, everyone definitely has him on their Mount Rushmore. He is number one. There is no debate about it. Randy Johnson is the best Arizona Diamondback of all time.
Easily. Just even if I know, again, WAR, and I just had the baseball reference WAR for this one, but just going off WAR alone, he laps even Goldie by almost another 20 points alone. And that's just, it's crazy. Like, I fully agree with you as well. Best left-handed pitcher of all time. I know I didn't get to watch Koufax. I know I've seen Kershaw. Kershaw's had an amazing career, but he's not doing what Randy was doing. He's not putting up some of the numbers that we saw the big unit do here in his time in the desert. So I think that's kind of why we all fall into, like, said, he's number one, probably in all our books. Most of you guys probably listening would probably agree. If not, let us know, obviously, in the chat or even in the Discord if you have like an argument for somebody else. Maybe the guy that's probably number 2 on our list that we'll get here in a second, but maybe he's up there. So if you have any ideas or any, counterpoints, let us know. But as I kind of already teased to it, Brandon, would you say, who would you say is number 2 on that, and also is probably going to be second in everybody's mind when they think of it, because he is also the same guy that was in the Diamondbacks Hall of Fame induction just this last year?
Has the biggest hit in D-backs history, Luis Gonzalez, hitting probably the best pitch that anyone's ever had over the last 20, 30 years, and that is Mariano Rivera's cutter, Luis Gonzalez, Gonzo. He phenomenal. Also fans love him. He still works with the team, so it's really great to see. Like you get to see him all over the place. My mom actually got a signed ball from him when she went to a game this past year. So, but in 8 seasons, he had a 30 WAR, had a 919 OPS, 5 All-Star games, and that 2001 season, that is a really good season.
If it wasn't for
57
Bonds,
homers.
he would have been MVP.
Oh yeah, even though he finished third that year. I don't know how he finished third.
Oh, Todd Helton. Todd Helton had an
No.
insane year.
Nope.
Wasn't it?
Sammy Sosa had 64 and 160.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Forgot about Sosa.
that was Bonds' 73 homer season. So yeah, like it's not like you really do feel bad for him. I mean, 2,500 hits, 350 homers. Like there is, like we said with Randy, there is no debate. There's a reason why they both won the first Hall of Fame class for the Arizona Diamondbacks because they are the 2 best players in franchise history. So congrats there to Gonzo.
Yeah, so I think you bring up a great point with him just, being loved by all the fans. Like, obviously not for just what he did on the field, but for what he's done off the field. And to kind of I know Gabe made a great point about that in our group chat of why he was, kind of go and some of these guys get a little bit more probably points and brownie points in our book just because of what they do, just off the field. So, Gabe, kind of what are your thoughts, whether you agree, disagree on Luis Gonzalez, the World Series hero from 01, being number 2 on our Rushmore?
So actually, I have Brandon Webb as my number 2.
Oh,
Because
they
I
throw a little
do
curveball.
think the reason why is because Brandon Webb was, not even objectively speaking, he was the best pitcher, not just on the team at the time, but also the best pitcher in the league. He won the Cy Young here. He also had 2 second place Cy Young finishes, which he should have won. But the reason why he didn't win is because this is when they still cared about wins and losses. And he had like 15 losses and like 5 wins just because the team was terrible. His ERA was like at 2.4, but the team was terrible in those first couple of years that he was here. So he missed out on Rookie of the Year, which he should have won over D-Train. His ERA was an entire run lower, pitched more innings, more strikeouts. He was just so much better than D-Train. Just the team sucked. And same with his other Cy Youngs. The 1 year he won the Cy Young was actually one of his worst years that he had. He had better years before and after. But just, yeah, Brandon Webb was incredible. He was one of those first pitchers that I saw like coming up, and I was excited to see him as a kid. And I think he was just incredibly dominant. And I mean, if you guys have Gonzo, I think Gonzo is not, there's no wrong answer here. I don't think Gonzo was just incredible while he was here. He also has the greatest commercial of all time for that Sanderson Ford that we use all the time. So maybe that's why he's number 2.
That is true.
Yeah, so I think honestly I wasn't expecting the curveball there, but you do bring up a great point. Is like obviously he doesn't have the World Series ring, doesn't have any of like the big moments like Gonzo does, the memorable ones. But what he did here, like he's one of the reasons why I love pitching the way I do. Why obviously I still love Brandon Webb to this day, just because that stretch that he had, like going up against Peavy for the Cy Young on some of those years when Jake Peavy was disgustingly insane. It's just it seems like one of those. There's always a Diamondback that has an insane year, and you're like, wow, they must have won something like an MVP or a Cy Young or something. And then you look at who they went up against, and you're like, oh yeah, they're basically going up like God reincarnate as a human being and a baseball player. Cool. Hell yeah. But yeah, I know that you said you would put Webb at 2 and then Gonzo at 3. What were some of the things obviously with like Gonzo and maybe what could have been like? Do you think if Webby wouldn't have had the shoulder injury, do you think that there's a possibility that he is even? Again, you're not going to give Randy a run for his money really in that spot, but do you think that there's maybe a conversation that could be had if that shoulder didn't explode on him?
Yeah, I think with Brandon Webb was also on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Like you're talking about 33 WAR in 6 years, and he just really never pitched again. Like if you double up his numbers, I mean, even if you add some runs here and there. He wasn't even old either. Like if you double up his career starts and everything, I'm like, you're talking about a guy who probably would, maybe not unanimous, but he would easily gotten into the Hall of Fame and probably would be a D-back in the Hall of Fame as well. It would have been our second one. Unfortunately, at the time, like just surgeries weren't the same as they are now, so it is very unfortunate. But I do think even now, I mean, he's still a legend here. Just the only difference is that Gonzo, won the World Series, so that's why he's always going to be, I think, in D-backs fans' head, he's going to be a number 2, like easily. But yeah.
So, like both of you guys said, there's really not many wrong answers to go with these first 3. But Brandon, kind of, what are your thoughts? I know obviously you had Webb at number 3. What kind of stuck out to you, and why is this one of the easier names? Because again, there's a lot of good pitchers. One that off the field stuff, we'll kind of get to him in the honorable mentions. Fuck him, but when it comes to the on-field stuff that he did, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like we had a little bit of discussion in the group chat between Webb and another guy, but what kind of solidified him in your mind of him easily being up there, obviously as the number 3 for you on the Rushmore?
I mean, if we want to talk about just homegrown talent, like he's the best pitcher that we've had that basically we drafted, we developed, and he stayed. Now, would he have stayed if like we said, if injuries weren't a problem? I don't know. Like that's a alternate timeline kind of thing. Like that would be fun to kind of talk about. I'm going to disagree with Gabe that he got a second Cy Young stolen from him, because 2007, hold on, where'd it go? What Jake Peavy won. Jake Peavy, more wins, half a run less ERA, and more strikeouts. So I think they have the same ERA plus at 158. Brandon Webb threw 13 more innings. He did have 4 complete games and 3 shutouts. So there's a discussion there, but I'm not saying that Jake Peavy didn't earn that one. And then 2008 was Tim Lincecum.
Big time Timmy Jim, baby.
Yes, Webb had more wins, but Lincecum had almost 75 more strikeouts. So I think he deserved it. Also, ERA was almost a run less. Same innings. I think he would have deserved it, but I think those other guys were more deserving of it. But Brandon Webb, I really wish we could have seen what he could have, because he was going on from 2006 to 2008. He was one of the most dominant pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. He was that sinker. That sinker is truly a fantastic pitch. So,
dude, him and Snyder also had a super cool. I just love their little celebratory they did every single time they finished.
Another
the game.
Guy.
He had so many complete games too.
Another guy that has stayed working for the organization.
Chris Snyder still works for us?
No, I'm talking about Webby.
Oh yeah.
The post game, yeah.
Yeah, so he's just some of those guys that one of the nice things, especially when we have the next generation of D-backs fans growing up, actually getting to hopefully continue to watch. Maybe he stays here with the team, still doing these post games, and then it could be one of those where hey, what's this Brandon Webb guy? And I'm like, sit down, Sonny. I got stories to tell you. Trust me, you're gonna want to know who this guy was. But yeah, I think those 3 guys are probably one of the least debatable on do they actually deserve it because of what they did. Obviously, Webb being homegrown and doing what he did, and to Gabe's point, 30 plus WAR in 6 years is not really heard of. You don't get that too often from guys. Gonzo, what he did on the field in the World Series, obviously, and then with the community as well, still working with the team, always being at a lot of the events, just being such a personable guy, super nice, genuinely one of the nicest ball players I've probably ever spoken to. And then Randy, the insane contract, it's just stat wise and everything else that you really can't have a different number 1. But when you get to number 4 on the Rushmore, this is the fun thing, and like I was telling you guys, where we get into a little bit more of a, not like a debate, but more of a discussion. There's definitely a few routes you can go. I know Brandon and Gabe kind of swapped their number 4 with their first honorable mention. So, we'll get into that. I was definitely going to be agreeing with Gabe on this one, but when I did a little bit of looking into some of the other stats and all that, I definitely, found a few more names that I was kind of interested in. But I'll start with Gabe on this one as well for number 4 of Mount Rushmore. Who do you have in your book taking that 4th spot and having their name, carved into stone in the D-backs franchise?
For me, and I think for a lot of other people, he might even be a number 1 for a lot of fans. It's Paul Goldschmidt. He is, for when he was here, he was Mr. D-back. He was just incredible. And I know we talked about last week about Christian Walker, like maybe defensive metrics, maybe he might be better, maybe he might not be. But again, we talk about, recency bias. Like when you dig into Paul's number, just how good he was here. He had like a 440 WAR, 297, 398 on base, 532 slugging. That's a 930 OPS for his career with the Diamondbacks in 8 years, and a 145 OPS plus. He hit over 200 home runs. He had 3 Gold Gloves. He had 3 top 3 MVP finishes. Probably should have won over McCutcheon. I still think he should have won that one. Either way, just again, we've talked about Gonzo, just the work that he does with the community. He's seen as an all-around great guy as well, not just on the field but off the field. He was just incredible. He was here. He played, other than when he got his hand broken by the Pirates, like he was there every single day. Like he was, a steady presence in his lineup, despite the terrible teams that he was surrounded by. He was still such an incredible player, and I think he is going to end up in the Hall of Fame. And I would hope he's ends up as a D-back in the Hall of Fame. Doesn't choose the Cardinals, because with the Cardinals he's gone to the playoffs, I think, a couple more times with them, and he also won an MVP with the Cardinals. But he should be a D-backs Hall of Famer. He should be the number 2 right beside Randy Johnson. He was incredible for us, and hopefully, I know it's a good story, but I do think he still has a lot to offer. So I would love to see him back here for this next run.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. I think, again, there's plenty of other guys. I think Brandon had made a great case and made a great point for who he'll get to. But yeah, Goldie was just, I tried to be a first baseman like Goldie. I tried to model my game after him. Gonzo is my favorite player of all time. I always had his number 20 and everything I could think of, from an email to a school login ID to anything. I always tried to throw the number 20. But man, after what Goldie started to do, even in 2011, 2012, 44 was everywhere on me. Like even like my name on Twitter, Brett Johnson 44. Like the Goldschmidt and everything about it is just deeply ingrained to a lot of D-backs and a lot of D-backs fans. Yeah, and Oscar makes a great point. Nobody's worn 44 since he left, and I think they're hopefully keeping it warm for him. So when he comes back, I should say, we don't have to worry about buying a brand new jersey. All of us fans can bring out the other ones that we already have in our closet, rock and be like, hey, look at that. It's, I'll still buy a brand new one, but I think the Goldschmidt being a number 4 is a really solid choice. But as I said, Brandon did make a great argument and brought up another name that he's not a former D-back, but from what he's done in his same amount of 8 years that Paul Goldschmidt did, he's got a pretty good case. So, Brandon, I want to pass it to you and, let you have the floor on who you would put in stone for your number 4.
I mean, we already talked about him because he's the best second baseman in all of Major League Baseball right now, and that is Ketel Marte. I get why people choose Goldie. I do. I just wanted to be different on this one, and I think he's the. I mean, there is no doubt he is probably he might be in the top 5 of best D-backs of all time. Yes, he's same number of seasons as Goldie, but if you look at number of games and at bats, like it's not close because Ketel has missed a lot of time due to injuries. But due to their B-WAR is very close. Like that's for the amount of games that Ketel has missed. Like I'm actually quite surprised by that. We see what Ketel is when he's healthy. Like Cattell is truly one of the most dynamic players in Major League Baseball when he's healthy. We saw it this year. When he's healthy, he is the best second baseman in all of Major League Baseball. There is nobody else. Philly fans, stop with Bryson Stott. Just stop. Just stop. I'm tired of seeing, like, when you see that, people say, why not Bryson Stott? Because he's not good. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. So, Cattell, I think he's one of those guys that's going to be a D-back for life. He signed that extension a while back, and I just don't see him going anywhere else. And there was that period of time where people was like, oh, if the D-backs don't do well, do they trade Ketel Marte? No. So, no.
Yes, exactly. I know you said Goldschmidt is a good choice, but obviously, even other than just being different, having a different answer, Cattell is definitely making a case for him. He's already top 5, if not top 3, in a lot of things I was looking at earlier, like WAR for offensive players, home runs. He's going to be getting himself up there. I believe he's just at 140 this year. So if he can, stay a little healthier, I think he'll easily eclipse like the 200 mark in the next few years. He's just, and even if the defense doesn't stay there, he can still transition to DH, and like you said, I think he can definitely be a D-back for life, and I would love to see it because I'm so tired of these players that have so many good years here and don't get the recognition they deserve by fans outside of this team, and then the second they go to another organization, everyone's like, oh my god, hey, pay attention to this guy, he's pretty cool, he's pretty good at what he does.
Good for 8 seasons, y'all, so shut your mouth.
I'm about to. We can just ban Oscar from this one. Okay, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick argument, I guess, for Cattell as well. Like when we look at actual Mount Rushmore, they have George Washington, which is one of the greatest presidents, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, then randomly Teddy Roosevelt, but that was mostly just because he was the president at the time. He is a good president, but you could obviously put FDR or something like that, an actual like great president. So it's not always about the literal greatest, like in terms of numbers and stats. It's people who've left a positive impact. And when we're talking about an impact, Marte, I mean, he is probably the best hitter on this team. He helped propel them to a World Series. Like Goldie just had like maybe a couple home runs in 2017 during that playoff run, but Cattell, he had like 4 hits in that wild card game. He kept hitting even against the Dodgers. He didn't stop. He holds the MLB record for hits in the playoffs as well, like hits in a row. Like he is one of the greatest D-backs players and one of their best postseason players in general. Like even if you look at Gonzo during the World Series, during the playoffs, he really didn't bat all that well. I believe he was like a 220 or something like that. He did bat pretty low in general. So Cattell just is incredible, especially like the lights are bright. He shows up and he just makes it look so incredibly easy. So again, I don't think there's any real wrong answer between Goldie and Cattell. Like they're both the other faces of this franchise, and Cattell stays relatively healthy. He could also make a push to end up in Cooperstown, because he is still young. So, we'll still have to see.
Yes, I think if you could do it as Randy Johnson is the one that built the Rushmore, because he's number 1. If you slot it into Goldie or like Gonzo, Goldie, Cattell, and then Webb, I think even that's like all 4 of those guys would. I think a lot of fans.
If we want our pitching and batting, then there's no debate. Cattell's on that Rushmore.
100%. He is, and even like Gabe said, he's not far from even being done as a baseball player, and hopefully not even far as done being a Diamondback, because I want to see him stay here forever. But those are our 4 Rushmore. Just a quick recap of the faces that we put on there before we get to some honorable mentions, because again, there are a few in here that maybe didn't have the same amount of success here, or were just short, might have had better years for other teams, and that's maybe why it kind of disqualifies them from us in a sense of form. But Randy Johnson at number 1 for all 3 of us. Me and Brandon have Gonzo at number 2. Obviously, Gabe's got Webby at number 2. Flip-flop those for number 3 as well. Goldschmidt, Cattell for number 4. You really can't go wrong with any of these guys. And I think, again, a lot of fans would probably agree that these are some of the names that come to mind. But now we get to the honorable mentions. And this is where even I was enjoying some of the, like, looking at some of the stats, because again, we are a younger franchise. Some of these numbers might not be as eye-popping, like, oh, only like 10 something more, 14 something more, whatever. But in the years that they put up here, it's still pretty impressive, and especially considering what they did. So, Gabe, kind of like normal, I'm going to start with you on this one. Your first honorable mention on who could at least have some kind of candidacy or some, case to argue for, maybe them being also put up there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just made my argument for him, which was Cattell. Like, he probably, you can switch out maybe a couple of these guys, and he should be on there. Like that, I really don't think he's a wrong answer. He's just one of the best D-backs players we've ever had. Like, he's been relatively consistent. He's had maybe one down year since he's been here. Like, I mean, really, like even if you count that 2020 season, if you had to, double up his stats, like he is closer to Goldie, I think, than we really realize. But yeah, for me, it's Cattell, the first one. Are we gonna go each one, or
honestly we can
do? I think just do.
Yeah, just let's honestly do all of his.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, number 2, Kurt Schilling. He was here for 2. He was here for 4 years. The reason why I know a lot of people would have him on there just because, again, he won the World Series, co-MVP, which has never been done before, hasn't been done since. But I think if you compare his numbers to Brandon Webb's, his WAR is still 10 points lower. His ERA is a little bit higher. But still, he was incredible for this team. He had 2 second-place Cy Young finishes with this team behind Randy Johnson. He had 2 All-Star game appearances, a 3.14 ERA. He was just great player for this team. He was only here for 4 years, but he made a really big impact. He was one of those key pieces to help us win the World Series. So it was just him and Randy Johnson. I mean, Randy Johnson won 3 games. I think Kurt Schilling won 1, I think, or something like that, just because then Randy came in to relieve him. And then Justin Upton, when he was here for 6 years, he was the one who started the baby back movement. He had almost a 14 WAR with this team, 832 OPS, 112 OPS plus. He had his own part of Chase Field named after him, for everybody who remembers Uptown. He was a fan favorite here for quite a while. Like, he was an exciting player. Same with Chris Young. I also want to do a quick shout out to Zach Greinke. Zach Greinke had 3 great seasons here. He had one, he stumbled a little bit, but still overall, he still had like a 3.5 ERA here with the Diamondbacks. He got almost like 900 strikeouts. He was truly one of our best signings, even though still to this day, people are like, oh, that was a massive miss of a contract. And I don't think they should have traded him, because can you imagine Zach Greinke and Zach Gallen going back to back? Like the amount of workshop that those 2 psychos would have done. Like, we missed out on that.
I would love to be a fly on the wall.
They are
in that
both
conversation.
Yeah, man. Like I wish we could have seen that, but those are my main guys. But then you can always shout out Robbie Ray, Patrick Corbin, Gerardo Parra, Aaron Hill, O-Dog. Like, there's so many great players here that had great seasons, but obviously they can't really be on the Mount Rushmore just because they weren't here long enough. But they were great players, and fans still love them.
Yeah, so you mentioned he was one of the ones that I was gonna have as my first honorable mention, Orlando Hudson. He was insane here. He was one of the reasons why when in Little League, and minors and all that, I wanted to be a second baseman and I wanted to try to switch hit, because it was just so cool seeing what he could do. Like, he was just so nice off the field, and then when he was on the field, he was just consistent. He was really good, obviously in the field too. Won a few Gold Gloves, but I did knock him off of the list for one guy. And I know his offensive numbers weren't crazy. You know, 274, 326, 395 slash, 729 OPS. His career OPS here was actually below average at 94. But I will argue this is the strongest arm in D-backs history. I know Nick Ahmed in the shortstop had a pretty strong arm, but Gerardo Parra was insane out there in left field. Some of the plays he made, some of the guys he would gun out at home, even on the base paths. super fun to watch. 2 Gold Gloves, obviously, when he was here. And then even some of his, like, he had more triples than home runs, or he had 8 more home runs than triples. So again, he wasn't the biggest power guy. It's almost like you had a Geraldo Perdomo in left field, just with an actual like biomechanic arm attached to his left shoulder. Seriously, if you were too young to watch Geraldo Parra highlights or don't remember him much, I highly recommend it. My number 2 was Chris Young, like you mentioned, Gabe. He was really solid. You know, kind of the reasons why the Babybacks got going. 14.3 B WAR, 239, 318, a 437 slash, 755 OPS. Again, wasn't like, you know, I think some of the numbers in the last few seasons when he was here kind of hurt the overall numbers, but was still really fun to watch. I will always remember watching that walk-off home run against the Astros, I believe it was before the Astros switched to the AL. They're still an NL team and they weren't good. So losing to them would have been bad. And Chris Young said, "Don't worry, hop on my back." Wasn't a Brian Roberts-esque, you know, crazy comeback home run to walk it off, but it was pretty solid. And then my last honorable mention, we've always had a big issue with closers. Even in his last year here, he wasn't the most solid. That's why even I remember being like, cool, he's gone, we can move on. But Papa Grande, Jose Valverde, most saves, and he's a save leader currently in Diamondbacks history. He's got 98 saves. He had a 3.29 ERA, put up 260 innings, 331 Ks, and a 1.41 ERA plus. And we don't, especially again, like I said, we don't really see too much success out of our bullpen. And he was really solid. I know Brandon has another guy that is right there neck and neck with him that put up some solid numbers too, and even less time. But those are kind of some of the 3 that stuck out to me that obviously just for the actual Rushmore, like they're not going to be up there and take the spot of a guy like Goldie, Marte, Gonzo, Webby, but still really solid careers here as a D-back. And I would definitely say fan favorites. But Brandon, you know, same to you as well. What are your 3 honorable mentions? I know you even surprised me with one of them that I was a big fan of when you said it in the chat. And I was like, I like that a lot. So you have the floor.
Yeah. My first one is one we've already discussed. Paul Goldschmidt, Goldie. Hopefully we see him this upcoming season back in that jersey. If so, I'm at the contact one of my friends. I'm like, can I have my Goldschmidt jersey? Because I let her have it after he got traded. I'm like, I'm never gonna wear this again. That might change. I might like, I'll give you money to ship it back to me. Because I did not realize how many categories he's the leader of in D-backs history. So just WAR position players, he's first. Offensive WAR, on base percentage, slugging percentage, on base plus slugging. Let's see what else we got. Going down the list here. Base on balls, strikeouts, but that's like he has probably near the most at bats. So you think, yeah, he's probably gonna have the most strikeouts. There's a couple of other like advanced ones that I don't think a lot of people would. He has the most intentional walks, power speed, win probability, like championship WPA. Like there's a lot of those where he's number 1. Like that's a lot of leaders. That's
did it without steroids too.
Yes, he did. Like I'm not saying that Goldie isn't one of the best because he is. For me, I chose Cattell mainly due to the fact he got them to a World Series. Goldschmidt did not. That might be a little bit like it. Like really, that's the reason why. Yeah, they really. Yeah, I know they didn't win, but on Cattell's back, he was one of the guys that got us to the World Series. Goldie never could do that, but that's because it was literally just Goldie for those seasons. Like especially 2017. Like yeah, he had JD Martinez, but it was for half of the season. It was all Paul Goldschmidt. So that's my first honorable mention. Number 2, who I think is the best catcher in franchise history, and that is Miguel Montero. Loved watching him play. Was really happy for him when he won that World Series with the Cubs. Because Miggy was definitely like he gave it his all. I love watching Miggy play. I love every so often when they bring him on for like a broadcast and like just kind of like little throwback discussion. So it's always
also Miggy style tacos at Taco Bell,
right.
baby.
Like how can you not love Miggy style? hey, by the way, can we have that back next season? Like, I
After
get
what
why
after what our offense did, I don't think they want to bring it back for us.
No.
We would run Taco Bell bankrupt in Arizona.
Well, that's why they didn't do it this season. They saw that offense. They're like, nope, that's not happening. And then my last one, another closer. I think a lot of people forgot JJ Putz, 83 saves, 160 innings, 178 strikeouts. You love to see it. Way more strikeouts than innings pitched. Yes, we are a young franchise, so we're not going to have a lot of closers. Like our league leader, like Brett said, is Papa Grande at 98. And you're like, that's actually not a lot. I'm like, it is for a young franchise like this where most of our closers don't last very long. Like it is right now.
Rodriguez put up like 100 saves in like 2 years for the Angels. Like so many of the teams have guys that are just insane.
So, yeah, those are my 3 honorable mentions.
Honestly, I think those are pretty good, especially the Miggy one. I think that's one that has a really solid case, especially like looking at his slash. I was a little surprised at what it was because I knew he wasn't like a terrible hitter, but still pretty respectable. 264, 342, 421. And when we haven't had, like, I think Chris Iannetta, his season in 2017 was one of our better offensive seasons we've seen from a catcher. And just it's because going from Miggy to some of the guys like Wellington Castillo, hey, I loved yelling beef anytime he did something. But other than that first stretch when he got here, it really wasn't much beef being yelled. Because
don't have to worry about that now, though, because we have our catcher of the future. Thank you, Toronto. Thank you, Toronto.
Yeah. I still missed Alton Varsho and all the tools, but yeah, thank you very much, Toronto. Now that we have kind of the 4 Mount Rushmore guys and the honorable mentions, I did have 2 questions I wanted to ask you guys along with anybody in chat. You guys are obviously free to answer as well. To kind of round out the show here is question 1. Now that we've gone over our picks for the Dbacks Rushmore and honorable mentions, which current players do you see making great strides to that place by the end of their time in the desert? I know Cattell was already one that was mentioned. But if there's any other guys, I know for me personally, Corbin, and if he does stay here after this next year and we do re-sign him, I think Zach Gallen is definitely on his way there because I believe he's 3rd on the list for pitching WAR. He's right behind Webb, so he's making a name. And then the second question I had about this was which former players, kind of like what Gabe was saying, he put this into my head with like Greinke, which former players have great cases for it, but might have had better years or more awards for other teams that might disqualify them in our minds. So, Gabe, I want to start with you. What are some of the names that kind of come to your mind for these 2 questions?
I don't know. Maybe Greinke. He had better years in other places. But I guess I will say for like the guys who are probably going to end up there, I can see Corbin. Corbin Carroll, not Patrick Corbin, ended up on there. Cattell is probably going to end up on there. Like this young batch of guys that we have right now, I think a lot of them are going to end up either on Mount Rushmore or even going to be in talks to end up in the Hall of Fame. I can see Zach Gallen ending up in the Hall of Fame, but depending on how much he signs for and where he signs, maybe he'll go in as a D-back, maybe he won't. So, but I do think that series for a reason. Like they're a very good team, but I do think there's going to be quite a few of these, especially these young guys like Moreno, Gallen, even Kelly. I think would have an argument depending on how long he stays here because he's only really getting better. He just had some injury issues, but with his stuff, he can probably keep pitching until he's 40 as well. Like the team just keeps re-signing him, putting in 1-year contracts. Like he could end up being one of our best signings ever. So also J Mart is just disgusting. So we talk about, Valverde having 90 something saves. Like if he's the closer of the future, you could be talking about a guy who's entering the 100 200s by the time his career is done.
J Mart could be in the top 10 in saves this season, by the way.
What's the lowest number on that list?
35 is number 10. Addison Reed.
Oh God, dude. Oh my.
Right.
I personally saw 2 straight blown saves from that dude in like. Oh my goodness. I don't even. Paul Sewell's giving us a heart attack. I will still take Paul Sewell this last season over what fucking Addison Reed did for us. My God. But Brandon, same to you. What current D-backs do you see making some strides towards having some good cases to be etched in stone in the Rushmore that is the Diamondbacks franchise? And then what other players had some really solid years, but kind of get a little bit disqualified or left off just because of what they did outside of this organization?
I the two that jumped right off the bat for me that currently that can be there, Zach Gallen and Gabby. I mean, we already talked. Good, Tel Marte. I think Carroll can do it. I just think there's a lot. There's been a lot of good outfielders in this organization. For him to creep into that top list is not easy. It's not that difficult for Gabby. It's really not for a catcher. Like he's already there. Pretty sure he's already in the top 3. What's crazy to me, if you just look at the WAR for this franchise, 4th place is Zach Gallen at 18.2. Next at 3rd, Schilling at 25.9. Randy's at 52.6. No way. There's I love Zach Gallen. If they trade him, it will be at the trade deadline because they are not where they need to be. That's when they trade them, not in the offseason like some other Arizona Diamondbacks podcasts were putting it out there. So just gonna say that. So Zach Gallen, if they want to sign him to that extension this offseason after the season that he had, I wouldn't hate it because we get a major discount. We could get a major discount. Yeah. So are we gonna call Oscars the Zach Mount
Zachmore? Because there's just nothing but Zachs and more Zachs.
So, and they all spell their name different ways. Another guy that I thought about putting on my honorable mentions, and someone I think a lot of people forgot about, Dan Herron. Dan Herron was very good for this organization. I really thought they were going to give him the shot at being the pitching coach. So I'm wondering if he didn't feel he was ready, or the powers that be didn't feel that he was ready. And I think that anyone else is more of a maybe. It's really funny to look at the team lead for just franchise lead for wild pitches. There's a lot of recent guys on this list, by the way. You got Corbin, Zach Godley. Zach Gallen is already 9th with 30. So that's pretty crazy to me. But yeah.
I think sorry.
I was just gonna say, I hope Zach Gallen is a D-back for life.
Same. It's definitely it's tough being a Boris client, but
I think oh man, I forgot his name. I can't read that. Dank Peralta. We completely forgot to talk about Peralta.
Nope. I didn't forget.
I think it's because of what he said. I think we're all a little bitter about that, but I completely forgot about him. Him, even Pollock to a certain extent too, but it just left such a bad taste in my mouth with the way they ended their careers here, because while they were here, they were still fan favorites and they put up such amazing numbers. They were, all stars. They were great players, but yeah, I think with the way things ended, I don't think any of us are too happy to include them.
What they said during the NLDS in the 2023 season, I wouldn't have an issue. Yeah, I thought that was completely just shitting on the fans that supported you for the longest time. Another current player that I want to see, I just don't know if he'll be able to play consistently long enough. Everybody loves him. How can you not? Fantastic personality. I'm pretty sure everyone on the team loves him, and that is Geraldo Perdomo. I just don't know if he's going to be able to play enough to be in that discussion. He's decent. His play is decent, he's at that shortstop position, and just like a lot of people are gonna want the power numbers. I'm like, he's never gonna have that, but he's gonna give you everything else you want out of your shortstop. That leadership, captain of the infield, calms down J-Mart every single time that he unravels. Like that's something you just can't teach. You either have it or you don't. So
Another
I
player that
know we all
stuck out
love
to
Jerry.
me, someone that stuck out to me a little bit that I think because of, they've done stuff in so many other teams, and he's basically like the Nick Ahmed of the early 2000s. Steve Finley. Steve Finley he's up there in a lot of statistical categories, and you kind of jog my memory with saying, yeah, Corbin's got a lot of other outfielders in this team's history that he's got to like, you know, step up and like pass them first. And Finley's definitely one of those where I know because he's played as a Giant and a Padre and I believe a Dodger as well, correct? I think the only
He
NL
played
team
for every organization in this division.
except for the Rockies, I believe.
No, he played for the Rockies in 2007.
Oh, well, there you go. So he got the Infinity Gauntlet filled out for him. So I think just because of that, it makes it to where he's not going to be on there. But Steve Finley is definitely a name, kind of like with not in the same boat as Peralta with like he didn't say any comments about the team and all of that. But I think he's definitely one of those where definitely deserves some flowers, but I don't think would at least surpass some of the guys. And then this might be something that maybe we'll touch on in our next one. Or I mean, if you guys want to give some thoughts, like I feel like it'd be pretty easy to kind of get your 4, because I don't think with us being a young team, I don't think there's more than 4 managers that I would even consider for Rushmore. But like Dank said, what about manager? Would Torrey be on there? I'll go first for the quick. I think Torrey definitely would be. Obviously, he's
It would be like Brenly, Bob Melvin, Torrey, and what's his
probably.
face? No. Oh my God, I forgot his name. He's with the Dodgers.
Gibson. Kirk Gibson. Yeah, there you go.
Just because of what they did here. But I will say, like, I mean, we're forgetting an obvious man for the Mount Rushmore. I guess he is the mountain which Mount Rushmore is built on. That's Greg Schulte. Like, he is Mr. D-back. He is who started this, this franchise basically. So we got to shout him out. We miss him. Love Chris Garagiola. Love Tom Candiotti, but Greg Schulte was the man.
Yeah, Schulte. Honestly, we should do like kind of like just the Rushmore idea. Maybe we'll kind of do other things like Mount Rushmore. D-backs fans would be tough because, again, there's so many that know ball, so many that don't. There's so many days that I thought I knew ball and I was proven wrong. I know a lot of fans have done that, but it'd be pretty tough for that. But I do like the idea of Schulte. I know earlier I said Randy was the one that kind of could be the one sculpting the mountain. No, Schulte was the mastermind behind it, and is the one that over encompasses all, because he is the Diamondbacks. Like, just so many even people that don't even know the Diamondbacks know who Greg Schulte is.
Yeah, Oscar's talking about the like D-backs fans or whatever. I'm like, the flag lady. Whatever happened to that guy who used to be like right behind the dugout with like the tattoos and everything? He's just like a Mexican dude with like long hair.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, because I know I think he always went to games with his kid, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe his kid got older and was playing more baseball. Where he was like, "Let's see, go to my son's baseball games, go to a D-backs game."
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of fans, yeah, it's probably like those two are probably like the more well known. Remember that cowboy guy too, who used to always be there, dressed in all like the
the you said it earlier when you brought up his name, Jason Kubel. What was the name of the fan group that was in left field that always wore the luchador masks? I think you cut out for a second.
Yeah. I don't remember.
I don't remember their exact name they had, but those were some pretty dedicated fans. Like a guy like Jason Kubel, like he was. I know he came from the Twins. Like, he was a pretty solid baseball player, especially during, when he came over, and he had a really solid year here. But it's always one of the things I will give, D-backs fans credit. And one of the things I feel like, again, maybe it's other teams that do it just as well. And because this is the team that we mostly focus on, but we will take a lot of guys that they could be in here for 1 year and just find a reason to make them a fan favorite. Like, they don't have to be doing MVP caliber stuff. They don't have to be making all these flashy plays. They could just be somebody that people genuinely like and are like, yeah, I'm going to make a fan club for this one specific guy.
I mean, like look at Ryan Roberts too. Like people still remember Ryan Roberts,
man.
like Tatman, JD Martinez. I think you could even include him on a certain Mount Rushmore, like
Steven Drew.
Steven Drew. I mean, there's a lot
That's a
of
good one.
even now, like Augie Ojeda, like this dude, like when he has lines
Augie.
around the stadium now, like when he does like fan signings, he still has like fans around the stadium waiting for him. Like this team does have a loyal fan base, and I just think they need to tap into it more. Like I mean, this year they had record attendance again. Like I do think they should just keep building on what they already have, and I know the Dodgers have damn near 100 years, and same with the Padres have 60 fan bases, but I think we are building to something here, and hopefully we do end up with more Hall of Famers, and we do feel like we're on pace with the Dodgers and the Padres and the Giants in terms of like legacy.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, with the Dodgers having so many years on us, even the Padres. I know we've like you guys already know, and a lot of other people, but like since I'm gonna be a father in May, and I'm gonna have a son, like gonna be having another generation of hopefully gonna raise him to be a D-backs fan. Hey, if he wants to like another team, try to steer him to be a D-backs fan, but I'll let him be his own person.
You may need to put him out for adoption if that's
as long as it's not the Dodgers, it's okay. If he wants to like the A's or something, before they fully become the Vegas A's and all that. But it's one of those where there's not really too many, like lifelong generation after generation of fans to be, following this team. And we're just now starting to get there. And I think in the next like 15, 20, we'll see like Gabe said, the super, like some of these loyal fans that are like love all these guys, like even Perdomo's another example. Like he might not be putting up like the most WAR, might not be a Francisco Lindor type superstar at shortstop, but the fan base loves him, and the fan base will probably love him for years no matter what. Especially like how everyone loves Tapman for his grand slam, people will probably still love Geraldo Perdomo for being the bat that got the 4 home run innings started against the Dodgers in the 2023 NLDS. Like some of these guys, you just need, even like Alec Thomas. I know there's been some trade rumors about him and Jake McCarthy coming up. If he does get dealt, that would really suck. Especially because again, like that 1 home run against the Phillies will always live on in infamy. Well, not in infamy. That will always live on in our hearts. Like when going into the season, like we would repost that thing on Twitter like every week almost, and it would just get insane interaction because the amount of people that are like, yeah, like I'm gonna have a memory of this my entire life. But yeah, I think this is a fun conversation to Rushmore. It's like a little nostalgic kind of trip down memory lane, especially getting some of these stats. Like you never really realize how some of these guys, like how good they were, until you actually look at and butter knife some of the other years away and just look at exactly what they did. And hopefully, maybe in like 5-10 years, like we can do another Rushmore like this and see what's updated, see who's maybe made a little bit more of a name for themselves. Maybe maybe we somehow get somebody that's almost as good as Randy Johnson, maybe not 59 more, maybe not putting up 300 something strikeouts a year and the 180 ERA plus, but maybe we have somebody that's pretty solid. But
I mean, it's impossible to get 300 strikeouts nowadays because they don't let them go deep in the games.
Yeah, really. But before we get out of here, kind of some final thoughts from you, Gabe and Brandon. Anything you guys wanted to touch on before we say goodbye to the folks listening?
I guess just to like piggyback up what you said, like hopefully in 5-10 years we have more names that we can add to the list, and then we can maybe add Goldie to the actual Hall of Fame. He goes in as a D-bag. We can take a lot of pride in that. Retire his number. I do think we have a great group of guys right now, and I do think this Mount Rushmore might look a lot different in maybe 10 years.
Fully agreed. Brandon, final thoughts?
I hope we get to talk about some sort of transactional news soon, whether that's a trade or a signing. We're kind of in that point where it could be dead for a while. The Angels are the only team that's keeping any sort of news going. Monday does start a lot of the big awards. I believe Rookie of the Year is on Monday. I hope Jackson Merrill wins because then I win $600. So
I want you to
we'll
win that
see.
for that, but we know it's going to be Skeens.
I mean, Jackson Merrill won it for Sporting Newt, like the other major publication they do for Rookie of the Year. It was Jackson Merrill, and most of the time they're the same. So
That's fair. That's good.
We'll see. We shall see. But no, I'm just hoping for a good 2025 season.
Yeah, the same here. And then honestly, I want some news to start coming down the pipeline, especially with once Thanksgiving kind of comes and goes, that's when we'll really start to see the hot stove heat up. But again, in the meantime, make sure you guys are, subscribing to the channel, keep all those notification bells on whenever we're going live and whenever we have we're going to start getting some more shorts and content like that pushed out. But join the Discord as well for, any of the news. If we're not live, if we're not going live, you guys can also put in some viewer questions. Like I said, we'll probably get some more of those in the next one. And again, check us out on Twitter and even on Blue Sky. One of my coworkers was telling us that there's not really many sports accounts on Blue Sky, so get on there. Don't have to deal with all the bots and the crazy bullshit that we used to have to deal with on Twitter, which we're still on there. Don't get me wrong, but get us going on Blue Sky. Get the same kind of fan base going on over there. But again, in the meantime, we appreciate each and every one of you guys for checking us out here at Dbacks Dispatch. I've been Brett. My other two homies, Gabe and Brandon. We will see you guys next time for another fun episode of Dbacks Dispatch.
It's the Dbacks Dispatch. Let's go. Yeah, Brandon, Red, Gabe, Josh on the floor. West Coast vibes, catch us on the air. Home run dogs, diamond gems we share. Brandon was a dad, Caesar man was a plan. Red races down, Chelsea like it is, man. Gabs on fire, brings the heat every time. Josh on the mix, keep the beat so prime. I got the insight, 7 weeks ahead. Tune in, Dbacks Dispatch, this is it. Now we roll. Dbacks Dispatch, yeah. Talk to Brandon, Gabe, this is Big Catch. Josh on the mix, he makes the beats. West Coast vibe, got the G fucking the bad. The home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. Dbacks Dispatch, we're here to stay. Yeah, catch us every week, we bring the flavor to it. We got the home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. Dbacks Dispatch, we're here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring the flavor to it.